I'm from Picture House Cinemas. We're looking forward to playing the movie
Amazing.
on the big screen,
Yes.
as it should be, on the 3rd of October. It's going to be, I think people are really excited. For this
Yeah,
one,
it seems
so,
like I was just literally, I went out of the hotel for like a second and I saw all the ads. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Probably looking at my eyes.
How did that happen?
Well, have you ever heard of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC?
That's the bloody thing they're trying to ban.
This guy is the best he has ever seen.
Do you hate each other when you fight?
Absolutely not.
But yeah, no, so from Picture House Cinemas, can't wait to play the movie. I just wondered, what's your relationship to cinema like? Do you try to go to the movies when you get a chance? You're very prolific, so I wonder if you get time.
Well, no, yeah, it's interesting because like what I'll do is a lot of the times I watch a lot of movies and I try to see them in theaters, when I can, because there's something really nice about that experience that you have with an audience, and just kind of feeding off one another, and yeah, it's just fun. And so, but I do have a lot of experiences at home watching things, like catching up on movies that I haven't seen or that like have been around that I just didn't know about, which is always exciting. But I'm constantly watching things, new things, old things, just that are kind of on the frequency that I want to be at, So, like right now I'm watching a lot of like Westerns.
Nice.
I use it in a similar way to that I use music, where I use it to help understand the world,
No, that makes sense. And also, I mean, as a film fan, you need to get it where you can. Sometimes it's in the cinema.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to cram at home. You can do 2 or 3 back to back.
But there is nothing like especially when you see a movie that you love and it's get re-released in the theaters and you go and you see it like that. It's amazing, because there's something that you can't capture when everybody is feeling something together.
Yep.
When you leave the theater and you're all kind of looking at each other, it's a cool feeling.
No, I hear that. I do love that experience. And I feel like with the Smashing Machine, you've got the big screen in mind. You've got that auditorium in mind. The sound work, the visuals.
Gosh, yeah.
It's what's that sort of finishing part of the project like for you when you're in the mix, you're in the grade?
Yeah, it's so funny because you're not really thinking, you are, I'm aware that I know that that's going to be a part of the process. When you're making the movie, you're making it, and I'm aware of how it's going to translate to the big screen, knowing that when you get to the finishing for the color and the sound, it's going to be a whole other process. And it was amazing specifically with the sound on this movie. The color, we had a very specific look in mind, and it really took first we got through it so quickly, and then as we just kept watching it, perfecting it. Maceo Bishop, the cinematographer. And it was like ironing a shirt. But with the sound, it was, from the beginning, I knew that was going to be an enormous way that people were going to understand the movie. It's the sound of the punches, the sound of the music, the sound of the score. I wanted everything to be here, and yet I wanted you to be able to hear everything, which was difficult, It's not, I realized that you have to carve out spaces, and so I'm watching the mix, and there's not a millisecond that I can take off, while I'm in there, because every time it's important. You want all of the dialogue to come through, but at the same time you want all the music to come through. And it really is a delicate balance of everything, but we did it in Atmos, we did a full mix, we did it a full mix in 7.1, full mix in 5.1, full mix in stereo, to try and get it as perfect as possible for every possible viewing experience. And because it's really, I just wanted it to be almost like virtual reality. I wanted the camera to make it feel like you were in the room, but to sell that, the sound has to make it sound like you're in the room. So we would put in sounds of like a plane going over the house, just distant, as if it was muffled, going over, or a leaf blower in the other yard. The speakers sounding like they're coming from the back corner of a room, geographically placed where they are. So it is a really incredible experience when you're in the theater listening to this, because the small moments become enormous, No,
I do love that. That's kind of like, it's just a magic trick. And the win is if the audience don't notice it, but they appreciate it.
Exactly. So when they go in, they feel it, and it's like, it's interesting because like if you do it which maybe for some it doesn't work and it's distracting. But for the most part, I'm like, I think it's going to work because when you're there, you're like, oh my God. And then the songs on the radio that are playing, we were very deliberate about making them sound like they were on the speakers that you see in the room or referenced in the room. And we paid so much money to get certain songs just on the radio, you know, in the background. So
things like that say so much about the character, you know, what radio station they're listening to, what song is on.
Totally.
And I do love it when you're watching a movie and, you know, it's just coming from the front speakers because the radio's in front of us.
Yes.
In front of the character.
Yes, and what's cool is at some point he's listening to the music and he's walking through the house and it stays where it is all the time. Like geographically, it's mapped so that when it's coming out of the left ear, but then when he turns around and goes this way, it switches to the other ear. So there is a real play there.
That's just like chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Got this. I wanted to talk, I guess, about the beginning of this process. You're a writer. You know, you're leading on this. I guess actually, writer, director, editor, very, very much over it. At what point was this something that you were considering doing? I guess for people who are fans of your work, like I am, they would have seen The Curse and be aware that you would be doing that. Was this in tandem with The Curse? Was it after The Curse?
It's interesting because Dwayne first approached me in 2019 about it. And when I saw the documentary and I heard Dwayne's passion for it, I knew that I wanted to do something with it. And it wasn't until 2023, just after The Curse, that I decided to like really go for it. And I saw Emily on Oppenheimer, which was right before The Curse, and so that kind of really pushed it all in motion. But it really was just like there was something inside of Dwayne that I wanted to help unlock, because I could tell that there was something so deep and passionate inside, and he wanted to explore it, and there's something about living with characters that I find very exciting, and with The Curse, it was a little bit of that. Like when you're with these people in their lives, you learn something about them, and it's strange, but that kind of place where you're observing them, but feeling things with them, specifically more so in Smash Machine, I wanted you to be inside of his brain, and Dwayne truly embodies another person. And Emily embodies another person. So you see the two of them together, and it's like you're watching something real, but it's not real. So there's something strange that goes on within the audience. And I think that's what brings you to another place of understanding,
How do you know Mark Kerr?
Oh, we go way back, but he's a buddy of mine.
Come on, baby. Too much?
Never.
Too much?
No.
Please welcome in his Octagon debut, Mark Kerr!
Winning is the best feeling there is. It's 40,000 people, and they're cheering you on.
Dwayne, especially as someone who audiences know, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So many people are. We know him as a certain type.
Yeah.
And this is another side of him.
Exactly.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing is you can connect it to everything else, that you're like, oh, it's another side of him. And when I met him, I realized there was, I saw instantly in his eyes and the way he was interested in speaking that there was just that like prism, where when the light hits it just a specific way, the rainbow comes, and that's really like there were certain times in this where I just couldn't believe what he was able to do and how deep he was able to go with it,
Do you remember what that first conversation was like with him? What was he really keen to bring to this film?
Well, it was the fact that he wanted to tell this story. That to me was really interesting because Mark Kerr isn't somebody who everybody knows, and his career followed a very interesting trajectory, and it's not one you would typically associate with someone like Dwayne, because Dwayne has been so successful and achieved so much in his life, and that's unbelievable. But he wanted to highlight this person who really had struggled with things. And I found that really unique and special. And I thought it said a lot about him. And again, I just could tell that he connected with Mark in a way that was unlike anything I had seen before, and I wanted to explore that. And you have to listen to the person inside of you that says, do this, you know? And that's what I did, you know? And it was just really that he wanted to, and I said to him, like, and that was specifically with the prosthetics and everything, I wanted him to shine through as well, because I knew he was using Mark's story to also tell a part of his own story in his own life and explore instances of pain that he's had to deal with. And so it's interesting because Mark has really changed us. You know, he's allowed us to tell his story. And in that process, I've understood more about myself. Dwayne has understood more about himself. And then with Dawn talking to Emily, Emily was able, like, I brought everybody in the room together before we shot it. And I said, let's talk about the times where we've had arguments in our own relationships, where we felt bad about the things we said. And I said, let's say them here. It's a safe place and we can talk about it, because I wanted to explore that kind of a relationship. And I wanted to make it feel very real. And it's interesting because, like, when you watch it at home by yourself, it's one thing. But when you watch it with a ton of people, it's a really interesting experience, because it's funny. You know, there's parts of it that are very funny and you're laughing with everybody. But then on a dime, it shifts and it's not funny anymore. Just like life, you know, but it's interesting to have that kind of, because it's a real relationship. There's moments of love and there's moments of pure anger, you know, but against one another.
I really love that in the film, actually, and also how the scenes with Mark and Dawn, you just let them play out. It's just the two of them. They're in a great location where they can move all around the set.
Yeah.
It feels like, you know, they can interact, they can smash things,
yeah.
You tear things up. But actually it's really rare to see just two people do an extended scene like that. And that felt really genuine.
Yeah, and it's hard because, like, there's definitely people who are like, oh, don't go so long on this, cut this down, or you don't need that, you know, and I'm a harsh critic on myself, you know. I didn't want it to be a long movie. I wanted it to be, I tried hard. It is under 2 hours before the credits, but I wanted it to be 2 hours, you know, because I like that length. But then again, it's like, when you spend time in a moment, and you're present, that's when things get interesting. And especially in a movie, when, like, some of my favorite movies have had that feeling where you really kind of feel like you're getting to a deep place and it stays there. And the fact that it stays just a little bit longer. I remember I was watching this Bresson movie, La Dame de Bois de Boulogne, which is a very, like, French, it's one of his first movies. So it has touches of Bresson, but you could see him learning, you know. There's a moment where she gets on the elevator and you take the ride with her, and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. You know, these moments in between other moments are very special. So
yeah, I do think it's sort of, the action is great, the dialogue is great, but sometimes it's the space between those.
Yeah.
You know, and that gives the audience a chance to process.
Yeah.
We can understand the characters maybe processing, and
Totally.
yeah, that's kind of what I love.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's using music, it's using sound. It's like, and that's the other thing is, it's like, when you live in those moments, then you can go crazy with the sound, because, like, you have time to place things and you have time to really play with how things crack and crumble and stuff like that. So,
this is based on a real life person, and you mentioned Mark earlier. What was your conversation like with him, and when you were writing, you know, how involved was he, or, you know, was it very separate?
No, you know, that was the first time I spoke to him. I said, I'm going to tell you everything about my life, because you're allowing me to tell your story. So it's only fair that I tell you everything about me. And I told him everything. Things not anybody knows, you know. And so I just was open. And I thought that was fair, because I was going to be exploring things that I knew would be difficult for him. And I said that to him. I said, not only that, but I said, I'm going to have to change things in order to allow a broader group to connect with it. You know, Herzog calls it the ecstatic truth, which I think is true. You have to do things that exaggerate or change to get at like an emotional core. And I was honest with him about that, and honest with Dawn. You know, Emily talked to Dawn, and he told me the thing that was so interesting was he was so willing to admit to his own faults and talk about what he's learned as a human being. And it was so genuine and so real that was profound for me, that somebody could go through everything that he's been through and be okay. And that's what I wanted to make a movie about, was somebody who has all of this stuff, and if you read just the bullet points of what he goes through, you'd be like, oh my God, that's horrendous. But he's okay. You know, like It's a Wonderful Life, you know, like what happens in that movie? It's actually pretty depressing. But at the end, he's the happiest person in the world because he changes his perspective. And so it really is a movie about experiencing this intense drama and intense fighting in and outside of the ring, and then coming to a realization about what really matters in life. So.
No contract, no money?
No money.
Do you have any stronger pain medication?
Advil?
Advil?
Yeah.
Don, would you like
No.
some? They're handing them out like candy. Let's all get in. Everybody get in. Hey, Don, can you take this picture for us?
Yeah.
What are you thinking at the beginning of the fight?
It's simple. Am I going to hurt him before he hurts me?
So all the best films show the character, you know, at the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I love how you focus on that 3 years.
Yeah.
We get the sense he has a history. We also get a sense, you know, that there's more after the film ends. But just really focusing on that period of time, you know, lets us see so many different sides of this relationship.
Yeah, and that's another thing is like, if you try to go too quickly, you lose the ability to actually understand the people, you know. And that was what was hard. It's like this word biopic is such a strange word because it's just a movie about a person. It's a biography picture, you know. And so that, I think, it gets thrown around in ways. But I wanted to do something where you were the person. What is it like to be another human being? And I wrote in the script, and I would talk about it on set, I called it radical empathy. Empathy as a radical thing. You're going to actually go inside somebody else's brain and experience the world through their eyes. And for me, experiencing that on the biggest screen possible is the ultimate form of that. Because now you're in a theater with all this sound and this giant picture, and you really are living his life. And specifically within a very small period of time in respect to his life. Because, again, you can learn a lot in those moments. So.
No, absolutely. I totally hear that. You're just sort of taking away the boundaries and letting the audience live that authenticity.
Yeah.
There. When I saw the movie, I specifically sat in the front row.
Amazing.
Because I didn't want any distractions.
Yeah.
I'm sure my fellow audience members would be totally fine, but just in case, you know, or someone with like a big hat sat in front of me, I was like, no, I'm front row for this. And I think for a first viewing, that's always quite important.
Yeah.
I just was fully immersed.
I like that. That's amazing.
I think one of the things that added to my immersion was just how the film looks.
Yeah.
I'm a big film guy. I used to be a projectionist in
amazing.
cinemas when we projected things on 35mm.
Cool.
I've laced up tiny 16mm projectors for the odd show. Played things off of Digibeta and all that sort of stuff. And I love how you use so many different film formats here. Am I right in saying that there's a videotape or a Digibeta or something, and then 16mm and then 65mm?
Yes. So the first part we shot on these tube cameras. And somehow Glenn Kaplan and Maceo Bishop, they figured out a way to... Maceo Bishop's the cinematographer. Figured out a way to get this onto a SD card at 1920 1080. So we got it, and then Sean Devereaux, the visual effects supervisor, figured out how to get it from 1080 to 4K.
Oh, wow.
And then once that was at 4K, then we ran it back through a VHS player and recaptured that through a bunch of stuff at 4K again, so that it could be a pixel for pixel representation of that on a big screen. Because I wanted it to be as if you were happening upon one of these fights on YouTube in the movie theater. And then it hard cuts into 16mm, his brain, And then we go to 65 millimeter, you know, and you're seeing life. So I wanted it to have that journey of feeling, you know, and it really was also, and then we shot on the actual broadcast cameras for the TVs, what would go on the screens in the movie, and what would go on the rear projection screens in the stadium. We would do a pass of every fight on those cameras for all of the stuff that you saw on TVs, because I knew I'd be playing with all of that, and I wanted it to feel real. And I always find it strange when like you're taking the camera angles are a little different. You know, it's just there's a different vibe. You know, we had a camera above where you could see the above the ring on. That one was just like constantly running and dying because these cameras are old. And that's another thing is it's a very specific period of time. It's 26 years ago, you know. That's a long time. I know it doesn't feel like that because I grew up in that time and it's like, oh wow, that feels like yesterday. But it's not. And when you actually start sourcing stuff, it's difficult. It's hard, you know, because you want things to look and feel like that time, but you don't want it to feel like kitschy.
No.
You know? So it's a very hard balance because like you realize the clothes that they wear. People are wearing clothes from 93. Sorry. 93, but it's worn and washed for 5 years. So it looks a certain way in 99. And so trying to really nail the textures of that time was intense. But something about 16 millimeter really just did it. There was a documentary called War Room, which was by Chris Hedges and D.A. Pennebaker. And they shot that on 16 millimeter. It took place in 93. And there was something about the feeling of that was really awesome. I can't explain what it was other than it made me feel like I had access to something that was special. And that's because it was real life on film. But like specifically, I think the audience understands that when something is filmed on film, there's just a little bit of something, there's something different. You know, that like, okay, they don't have an endless amount of time on a specific scene or on a specific thing, budget-wise. All those things go into it. So when you see that somebody's documenting the real world on something like that, it just clicks in a different way. And I wanted to do that in this movie. And of course it's so funny because all this like, we're spending this money to like get it into this little frame, you know? And it just, so it had an interesting kind of contradiction there. But the texture of it, I think, added to this feeling of another place, an alternate dimension, you know? And I wanted it to feel like almost like a virtual reality. Like you're there. So.
Totally. I love how 16 mil. It's also alive. You know, like you can see the grain.
Yes.
Occasionally a sparkle or something. And
yes.
It just sort of reminds you that you're watching something that's alive.
Exactly. And it's like it's a little bit. It's like sometimes when you see 35 millimeter, it's too clean. And like it's hard to beat it up in a way. And it's like so. And then the interesting thing about 65 millimeter is it's so clean. It's even that's the thing is like. You want to find the difference of something that's not 4K. That I think because like now that everything is 4K, you're like, well, how do you differentiate that vibe? You know.
I love how with 65mm how it captures light.
Yes.
So many great, you know, like stadium lights, bright lights.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on, but it just looks gorgeous. And when that came on in the cinema, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like all your brain. I saw this. I remember seeing this. I went to it was at a museum. They were doing an animation thing, and it was a 60s animation called Eye Wash. And I thought, wow, what a great feeling of like washing your eyes, like, and it was all these colors and things. And I wanted it to kind of go on that journey where you're kind of clicking into different resolutions, you know. I'm sure
This Grand Prix to crown the greatest fighter in the world. He has come back from the brink. Let's see if he can pull out a victory over Mark Coleman.
Have you spoken to either about fighting such a good friend for a life-changing amount of money?
It just
just need you to let me in.
Always about you. Only about fucking you.
You also shoot in multiple locations.
Yes.
It looks really gorgeous. I love how, sort of just the home looks so good in 16mm, and sort of the neighborhood, that sort of like deserty kind of beige, looks great.
Exactly.
But,
it's southwestern.
Yes.
I'm
And
finding
you let
myself
the
in
frame
the Southwest.
breathe as well. When it's just Dwayne on frame on his own, he's taking out trash.
Yeah.
He's getting his car. That looks awesome. But also when you go to Japan, there's sort of like the first few shots where it's Dwayne in the back of a cab.
Yeah.
And on 16mm it looks beautiful.
Yes.
What was it like shooting in Japan?
I loved shooting in Japan because there's something about location shooting that just adds something to it. And when we're there, it was like there's just an energy to the city. And it's funny, that shot in particular was so difficult. And because it's like, apparently they don't keep a lot of stuff in Japan. They don't have a lot of old cars.
Oh, wow.
And so, let alone cars from like 99, because those aren't even thought of as old. They just move on. So they may have like something earlier. But specifically, the shot of going, when I see the car, I had this shot in my head, where you see the car and you pan through the bridge and you see it go off into the distance. And we had all these cars around it to show the period. But I knew we would pan through a footbridge. And so to pan through the footbridge, I then okay, well, I want to see people on the footbridge. So then I have to cast people. So we cast 2 people, and then I knew when I did my test, I'd see from the waist down. So we cast 2 people, and then we had to find costume, period-appropriate costume, briefcases, so you pan through this one woman and this one businessman as you get to the car. So we did it a bunch of times just for something that looks like it just happened by accident. So we had them waiting here. Maseo was hooked in by like a thing because he had to lean over and pan through. And so it was this really complicated setup to get a shot that looks like we just watched it go. We just happened to catch the cab go by. And then, of course, we jump into the cab and we see him sleeping. So it's really fun to think about these things that we did to evoke a feeling within the viewer that we didn't do anything,
I mean, I was thinking like, wow, you got so lucky with...
Yes.
Because the taxis in Japan, they look kind of old anyway.
Yes.
So I was wondering are these like modern? Are they
No, that one,
retro?
and those, there's only a couple of those around, so we had to get a special cab, that color, and then there was, this is the insane thing. So the documentary had this one shot of a scooter going by, and it was a very specific scooter. And so we had to find... We didn't have to. I'm like, we need the scooter.
Yep.
I need to recreate the shot of the scooter. Because in my head, if I could create the feeling and show a recreation of a moment in the documentary, and I could seamlessly blend that in with fake. Hey, first of all, that's not real. So if I could recreate that moment, it was almost like I was sitting at a fire with something trying to build it up, and because there's something about that I find very exciting, that if we can get together and recreate reality, you can learn something because it's going to be different. But if you can evoke the feeling of that, that's exciting because it's not as easy as it looks. It's hard. And so, but I wanted to have those moments where you could literally hold it up and say, oh, wait a second. That's the same. It's like a litmus test built into the movie.
That feels like a real achievement unlocked.
Yes,
I
exactly.
did it, guys. I just wanted to ask about Nala Snefro.
Yes. Oh, she's the greatest.
Amazing music in this film.
Yeah.
First time scoring a motion
Yes,
picture.
it's remarkable.
How did you come across her work?
So Dan Lopatin, I was thinking about using her on The Curse, but she was making Endlessness and she was not in the right place. And again, she'd never made a movie for television or movies before, so she just makes music. She's a true artist, and her music is really unparalleled. I find it so evocative of a feeling and an emotion, and it's so beautiful and so unique. And when she said she would do the movie, it was almost like, I cannot believe that I'm getting somebody of her caliber to do something like this. And at the same time, I knew that I'm going to have to work with her in the sense that she's going to make her music. She's going to be inspired by the movie. I'm going to tell her the emotions that I wanted to capture, but I'm not going to get what I am at, like exactly what I am asking for, because if I was, that would be boring, you know? And I look at that throughout the entire process. I want to be inspired. I want things to change. I want it to be alive at every step of the way. So I was here in London for a week, and we were recording in some of the best recording studios, but I see her coming in with sheet music, and there's a 30-piece orchestra playing, and she's got the best saxophonist in Nubia, you know, like all these people playing this incredible music. And they're all doing it for her. And I'm seeing her work with them, and I'm seeing how jazz music is created, and I'm like, oh, this is similar to how you make a movie, you know? You set a vibe, and people riff. And then she takes it and she edits it herself to the movie. So she'll send me all the stems of the recording sessions, and I'll go in and I'll edit it to what I think it's going to be in the movie, and I'll send that to her. And she watches that and then internalizes it and changes it. Oh, wow. And so she'll send me stuff that's like completely different than what I expected, but so much better. And it really is such an incredible thing that, like, and I listen to the soundtrack just as I walk through the world because it's amazing to see that. But I'm just like, I can't even believe that she said yes, and that it's in the movie, and that it's as remarkable as it is. And it's almost like a psychoanalytical view of the characters and what they're feeling. It's really just an awesome thing.
Cool. That's a great collaboration. A way to cap off so many great collaborations in the film. And
I'll work with her again.
I mean, I hope so. I need to get the soundtrack on vinyl.
Yeah,
it comes
it's going to be
insane. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for all the great questions. Yeah.
Really loved the film. Cannot recommend seeing it on a big screen enough. Okay. And hope to see you soon, man.
Definitely. Definitely. Cool. This is great.
Oh, thanks, Benny. That was great.
Okay, thank you.
Big strong man, I love you.
Think he wants your autograph?
Sure, no problem. No fighting.